This month of January, 39 years ago, I went into a convention in Sullivan's Hotel in Gort. My father had died just before Christmas, and I was nominated to contest the seat that he had held for 3 years before his sudden death. This month, in fact, tomorrow night, 29 years ago, I was driving back from Portumna. My own car was in the garage. I borrowed my brother's Escort. I was in Portumna because that time we didn't know where the constituency was going to go, left or right, and I had to try and keep the two sides of the constituencies happy. And I was driving back, and if you know the road across the Slievachty Mountains from Portumna to Gort, and it was about 1:45 in the morning, and suddenly this blessed Escort stopped up on the road, and the lights went off, and I was left stranded in a place close to a crossroads known as the Wasteland Cross. And it surely is that. And I remember saying to myself, what in the name of God am I at? And I was there for about an hour sitting in the car, and I more or less was deciding that, look, I'm getting the hell out of this business. This election probably won't come for another 3 years. I had stood in the first election in June of '81. This was January. This night in January 1982. And after about an hour there, I couldn't even turn on the blessed heat in the car because there was nothing. It was an alternator I found afterwards. But suddenly a light came down the road from behind about 1:30 or 1:45 in the morning, and I jumped out of the car, and by hell did I wave that car down. Because I really thought there was never going to be anyone coming down from Woodford or that country at that hour of the night. And there were 3 fellas coming back from a card game in Balnakill, and they took me home. 3 weeks later, I was coming back from Tuam with a basketball team. I was 7 or 8 young lads in the car, and I was crossing the level crossing in Oranmore, and the 6:30 news came on, and the headline in the news was the government were going to fall on the clothes and shoes budget. And I remember saying to myself, I'm in Dálagan. And 29 years ago, on the 22nd of February, I was first elected to Dálagan. I have worked every hour that God gave me during those 29 years. I fought, this is my 10th election, 10th general election, a Shannon election, and 5 or 6 local elections. I've been privileged to serve in 6 government departments. I was especially privileged to represent Ireland at the EU Council meetings for almost a year in place of David Andrews when he was involved in the Irish peace process. I've seen it all in my political career. And I can tell you one thing, I never work as hard or try as hard as when my back is to the wall. That's why I'm standing in this election, and I am not going down without a fight. They've already written me off. They've said, Fine Gael are going to win the seat in Galway. No bother. But I want to tell you something, that I will be fighting this election harder than I've ever fought any election in my 39 years since I was first elected. I've made many sacrifices, and indeed, so has my wife and family, for which I thank them. But I've given too much to the people of this constituency and to the people of Galway to walk away. My work is not yet finished, and I have no illusions, as I've said before, that I'm going to find it difficult to hold on to this seat. I never said I was a goner, by the way, which I was quoted as saying, because that's not me. But I've got to be realistic, and my enthusiasm is greater now than it's been at any time since I was first elected. I look forward to getting up to go to work every morning. It is my commitment to public service. That is what drives me. And that is certainly more important to me now than it has been any time in my political career. And my God, over the last few years, they've certainly tried to bury me. All of of the allegations which have been made against me in the media have been wrong. All of them. I've had apologies from television, radio, newspapers. Recently, I had to go to the steps of the High Court in Dublin to vindicate my good name. But I can tell you one thing, the big one is yet to come. I've always been scrupulous about upholding the highest ethical standards. Nothing less would be good enough for the people of Galway. And I resent some of the media coverage that I've received over the years, where unscrupulous journalists, a small number, have tried to bury me with totally inaccurate and untrue statements. And I intend to ensure that I will deal with that issue in the final case coming up. I have no illusions, as I said, about the uphill battle that I face. My Fianna Fáil seat is in danger. But Eamon and I have worked hard over the last number of years to ensure that Galway was well looked after. And I am determined that the work that I've been doing over these years, I am going to continue, because I want to finish the job. Galway is the only city in Ireland without a bypass. In fact, it's the only city of its population in Europe that doesn't have a road around its city. I will work to extend the motorway, which we've now got from Dublin, down to the Barner Road. We've got the ludicrous situation where we're in the High Court, the Supreme Court and the European Court because of 2.5 hectares of limestone pavement out there in Ballindooley. It wouldn't happen in any bloody country in the world, and people are sitting in their cars for an hour every evening while we are being held up with this kind of carry-on. I'm determined that that bypass will be delivered, and that is my main priority in getting re-elected. I'm not going to talk about what's done. That's there for all of you to see. But I want to continue with the work. Eamon mentioned many of the projects. The motorway from Tuam to Garton, there are still some hurdles to be overcome in that one. I want to finish the job that I started in University College Hospital in Galway, where we are now pushing to get an 8-storey block of 52 million to be commenced as soon as possible, together with a 25 million refurbishment of Merlin Park Hospital so that we can have a day hospital and elective hospital there. I want to work, and have been doing a lot of work, on the reconfiguration of the hospitals, Galway, Merlin Park, Roscommon and Portiuncula, so that we put an end to the long waits that people have when they go into casualty in Galway. That's going to come to an end. You can't even park a car there, because 1/3 of all the people that go in there are inappropriately being sent in there. That's all now going to be fixed. After 30 years of trying, we have a new hospital manager in David O'Keefe, a consultant, a doctor, who is now doing the right thing at long last. I want to continue the wonderful work, the wonderful developments that's taking place in NUIG and GMIT, which are the powerhouse of economic growth in this city and in the west of Ireland. I want to develop the work being done by the Marine Institute, which I brought to Galway when I was Minister for the Marine and Natural Resources. I want to make Galway the green energy centre of excellence in Ireland. I want to lay the foundations, as Eamon said, of a waterfront city with an enhanced dock development. I want to ensure that Galway becomes the leading location in Ireland for the arts and culture, and in particular for music. And shortly we will see an announcement which I'm working on, the Spirit of Galway, involved in promoting Galway and Irish music and every other kind of music in cities throughout Europe. Over the years, I have been very involved in industrial development. And I want to continue my work in making Galway the innovation capital of Ireland. I've worked with ministers to drive industrial epicentre, which is now Galway, the innovation capital, and particularly in recent years I've worked closely with Mary Harney, Mary Coughlin and now Bat O'Keefe. We have created a world-class cluster in the biomedical sector. The research and science that's being done in the university and GMIT in projects like the Remedy project, which is a joint venture between Medtronic and the college, and in the Derry project, which is researching the next generation of the semantic web, a project between Hewlett-Packard and the university. And the guys in that project are now ahead of those guys in Silicon Valley in the research they are doing. They wrote 134 patents this year. In the Remedy project, a farmer's son from Clare-Galway has just come back from Houston, Texas, to take up a role as the professor in Trinity College and here in Galway. Frank Giles was the #3 in leukemia research in the United States. It took us 4 years to convince him to come back. We're building a new 20 million translational unit down in the hospital to enable him and all the other people involved in medicine in Galway to transfer the science out of the Remedy project in the university to the patients and the clinical care in the hospital. It is a wonderful thing to think that we have in this young man the #3 guy in terms of his expertise in the United States. He's now back in Galway working with the team there. And after him are going to come several drug discovery companies because of his expertise. We have a new biopharma campus built out in Oranmore, the first biopharma campus built in the world, waiting for those companies to come in. In the last 6 weeks before Christmas, we had 6 new industrial announcements coming into Galway. Some of the most high-tech companies anywhere in the world. In Bat O'Keefe's recent trip to the US, where he visited 12 different companies, he was told that they would produce 2,500 jobs in Ireland in the next couple of years. Just those 12 companies. And many of those jobs are coming to Galway. But we must value and we must appreciate that success. We cannot take for granted the success we're having in Galway, which is far and ahead of any country in Europe in terms of high-tech development. But the fundamental reason why Galway is successful is because of the most iconic company we have, and many people don't know this. Thermo King is one of the oldest companies in Galway. And recently in my discussions with Bat O'Keefe, we had a discussion with a man by the name of Stephen Shawley, who is the Global Vice President and Financial Controller of Ingersoll Rand. He said to me, the first time I came to Galway in the early 90s, I came to close Thermo King. And he said, Frank O'Connor and some others convinced me that they were reinventing themselves and that they should be given a chance. And he said to me a couple of weeks ago that Thermo King is now the most successful company in the worldwide Ingersoll Rand group, one of the biggest industrial groups in the world. Because he said they have reinvented themselves and they have made themselves so efficient. And he said, ask the union man, he said, and that will tell you how successful that company is. He said, if I had other companies in our group as successful as Thermo King, I'd have the finest companies in the world. That is Galway. That is what we are about, and that is what I intend to continue.